now hit the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in the recent past. So up next is the State of the Nation. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is today meeting all presidential candidates on cancellation of the tender and resignation of Agency Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba, whom they accuse of colluding with State House, awarding the tender to Al Ghurair Printing and Publishing Company. Let's now listen to some exchanges between Jubilee, NASA and IEBC on this matter that forms part of the State of the Nation discussion.
Option for IEBC is to cancel this tender and award it in accordance with the law to any other reputable international printers that are not associated with any stakeholder in the next election.
We evaluated, looked at all factors, looked at a possibility of, looked for a company which can print all the 130 million ballot papers in one factory. And it's the only company we came up with which can do that process. We didn't want to have a split tender where you have 3 or 4 companies printing ballot papers for elections in this country, because that is a recipe for rigging.
We want the IEBC to award the contract for printing of ballot papers to any company. Hata wakitaka kupatia kampuni ya Spectre ya Raila Odinga, wapatie. Sisi tutashinda uchaguzi.
All right, and now I'd like to introduce the panel that we'd like to have that discussion with this morning. To my extreme left, we have a lawyer, Harrison Kinyanjui. Thank you for joining us this morning. Next to him, we have John Kagushia, who's a political analyst. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Good morning. And last but not least, we continue with Oscar Omoke, who's a member of parliament candidate on an ODM ticket for Langata constituency. Thank you for staying on with us, gentlemen. This is what we have as a country. Let me start with you, Harrison Kinyanjui, on, first of all, your take from a legal perspective. IEBC is an extremely important institution as we approach the election, which is only 53 days away. Now, they say that perception is reality, and in politics, I think that plays out very well, such that IEBC has constantly been battered with accusations, or maybe like somebody might have put it earlier, they seem to walk into a wall and, you know, blindly, always bringing up accusations. Your thoughts, first of all, on where we are today as a country and the legal implication of what lies before us?
Thank you very much. It's very unfortunate that a certain side of the political wing has made it their habit to always badger, accuse, arrange, and attack the IEBC. The IEBC is an independent commission. It ought to function within the parameters of independence, and that means that you allow it to operate, its secretariat and its commissioners, without this undue interference. All the time you're applying duress, you come and attack their commissioners and you say they're incompetent, they are biased, they are falling on one side of the political divide without proof, and without following the constitutional laid-down mechanism of throwing them out. But nevertheless, your political pressure brings this about. Then what do we have? Ballot papers, you question. There are commissioners, you question. There are secretariat, you question. There are returning officers, you question. That is your song. But the IEBC is supposed to be permitted the room within which to operate. If you don't give them, they're about to make a move, you trip them. They're about to make a move, you trip them. What will we have? This unfortunate scenario.
One might argue that every move they make is questionable. For instance, now, if NASA had not brought up, or Raila Odinga had not brought about the question of certain businessmen meeting with the president, this was going to go quietly, but the issue here being just the conflict of interest.
A perceived conflict of interest. They say that Chiloba, for instance, the chair of the IEBC, went to State House on 2nd. Today is when? What did you do on the 3rd if Chiloba was seen in State House? On the 4th, on the 5th of June, you did nothing. Then out of the blue, when you hear now that Al Ghurail has been awarded this contract, you come pop up and say there was a visit by Chiloba to State House. You should have immediately sought to impeach Chiloba on the 3rd of June. But then you pop up. So there will always be these questions that you throw out, anecdotal, if I should say. And the US election provides us with an exempling, which I think we should be careful to follow and observe for lessons. For instance, there were all these fake news that were popping up just close to the elections. And today, there's a question of the Russian angle to it, the Russian involvement in the US election. Was there, actually? Or was that the Hillary Clinton side trying to impeach the election's viability, veracity, openness, transparency by throwing in the Russian angle? Because they were defeated. So you will see that there are these people who throw anecdotal quotes of, bias and the like, table the evidence. And if there is a legal mechanism to impeach the chair of the IEBC or any other commissioner, follow that process. Do it. But don't come out there, use the political platform of the media, and then get away with it. So what you're doing is you're poisoning the mind of the electorate, who does not have the luxury of sitting in a podium and analyzing everything you're saying. They believe you because you're a politician. And for instance, now, this is a person who leads another political wing in our country. So should he not be more responsible? I think he should.
All right. Kagushia, your thoughts?
Yeah, of course, these concerns coming from a senior politician like Raila Odinga and Musalia Mudavadi and the NASA side, they are bound to cause a lot of jitters in the process, and they are going to cause a lot of panic. And of course, as you can already see, they are heating up the temperatures and the environment that we are having and we are operating in on the political arena. And of course, they are not concerns that can be taken lightly based on where they are coming from. But again, it's good also to interrogate the issues which have been raised. This is not the first time we are seeing the two sides of the political divide coming head-on and in a very heated manner. You'll remember we had the issue of the national dialogue, which again had brought a lot of panic to the country. And of course, now that is water under the bridge. We had also the issues of the security laws again. We had the issue of the manual voting. You remember the 4th January mass action that never took place eventually. We also had the issue of the appeal that has been in the court now. And of course, again, NASA had declared that they would boycott the election if that appeal is done. Now, that has not, the boycott has not come. But again, you see, this has been a consistent trend all along to have very, locking horn in a very acrimonious manner. Now, this is a more dangerous event now, as we are seeing, because again, you see, we are only a few days to the election. And one of the sides have already said the referee is compromised. And of course, that is bound to bring a lot of issues. Now, I was looking at this issue and asking myself if one of the allegations is that the Jubilee side has colluded with the printer of these ballot papers, so that allegedly. Then they allegedly colluded, so that they can get extra ballot papers. Then I asked myself, is it even necessary if someone needed to rig an election and needed extra ballot papers, would you need to print extra, really? Because if you have 19 million voters and we are going to have 70% voter turnout, that is going to be about 13 million voters who are going to cast their ballot. And that then means we'll have an extra 5 million and 5.4 million ballot papers that remain. Then in that case, you don't need to have a favorable ballot printing company, okay, so that you have extra ballots. Wouldn't you question the conflict of interest? There is sometimes on Chapter 6 of the Constitution we talk about integrity, and there is what we would call the letter of the law, and there is the spirit of the law. Now, in this regard, wouldn't you question the conflict of interest between now government and being a major stakeholder in the election, now having a meeting with potential printers of the ballot papers? No, you see, when you look at this issue, first of all, these are allegations. Secondly, when these gentlemen came from Dubai to Kenya, if at all they did, and it's possible they could have come, was it a company that was coming to seek for a printing contract, or was it the Chamber of Commerce in Dubai that came? And Al Ghurair happens to be the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. You see, the president has met very many delegations from very many countries in the country over the last 2 or 4 years. And, you know, this has happened because there has been an engagement between these countries and Kenya. And you can see the foreign policy that probably the government has adopted in the recent times is whereby we are going to have more trade with other companies and also where we're going to have more investment in Kenya. So if the Chamber of Commerce from Dubai came, and then it so happens that they are also applying for these tenders, and also other people from other countries are applying for the same tenders, and one of them won, and they happen to have come here as a Chamber of Commerce in Kenya, I don't think there would be any conflict of interest whatsoever.
Kenyans, I guess, would question the streak of coincidence there, but let me hear from Oscar. And maybe the question here would be also regarding, is NASA making a mountain out of a molehill, and this consistent battering of IEBC?
Out of their own volition, out of their own motion, IEBC fired the director of ICT. That was not whistle-blown by NASA. They have also accepted that they have fired several people within IEBC out of their own motion. Now, the problem that we're seeing here is that wherever NASA speaks ill about IEBC, it's now being blown out. But when IEBC realizes that there's a problem within them, then there's no issue.
But we must allow them to operate internally. I mean, we cannot pick on everybody they fire and they do not fire. It's an independent commission after all.
Yes. Let me just come to what I'm getting to. Is that within them, they have also realized that there's a problem inside IEBC. And what NASA is now saying is that we are aware that this tendering process, this particular Al Ghurair, actually met the president, right? And the IEBC CEO met the president on the 2nd. Now, what we are saying is, we are not saying that there's something that they did that we don't understand. But what we are asking them, can they come out clear how this tendering was done, why they're insisting on this particular company to do the tendering? And I think those are the issues that NASA is asking for. All the others about NASA blowing it out of, I don't think that's now what counts here.
Well, one would argue and say some of the things or requirements that Raila Odinga has and Musalia Mudavadi have made so far is that Ezra Chiloba must resign. Yes. And also the director of, one of the directors, Taiti, to also resign. And looking at the time that we have between now and the election, are we not putting this country at a very dangerous point?
Free, fair, and credible election is what IEBC must deliver. They have, and we've said, they have already fired the ICT director, right? At this crucial time, if Ezra Chiloba has issues of integrity, issues that people actually are suspicious that he's doing that are not right, I think it is right that he either just come out publicly and tell us that this is what we've been doing, and this is why I met the president, and this is how we did the tender. Or if he keeps on being in the boardrooms and not coming out and telling us this is what actually NASA is talking about, then NASA will keep on asking him to confirm to us and tell us exactly what these meetings and all these processes were.
Harrison, the question of conflict of interest and that seemingly coincidence that, you know, the president met somebody from the commerce chambers of Dubai, then they happen to be the ones with the tender, especially at a time that's so critical. In looking at it from an integrity point of view, wouldn't it also be responsible for them at this point in time to say, okay, for the sake of perception, let somebody else do the ballot printing?
Well, we all can spin up whatever story that we would like to spin or bring a spin into whatever it is that we would like to impeach. Either because we feel that the process is going to bring out a result, an outcome, and favorable and desirable to us, or that we would like to railroad this into an outcome favorable to us. What do I mean? Raila Odinga is out there saying that, together with the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the president met these Al Ghurair people and therefore Not that there was an actual discussion of the ballot boxes, ballot printing papers, process or whatever. They are just making an inference, a conclusion without any credible evidence. But let's now flip the coin and say that Raila Odinga, you went to the US, you met people associated with the overthrow of the government in the Gambia, you met people associated with the Nusumkate government in in Zimbabwe, Morgan Tsvangirai, you met someone called Jeffrey Smith, and people who are associated with Vanguard Africa. And you actually are a member of Vanguard Africa, and therefore you have ill will for the electoral process. You actually have the intention to have a Nusumkate government the way they did with Morgan Tsvangirai. You have an intention to have results that are questionable, the Gambia style. You have expressed that. What if we told him then, therefore, your whole intention is to precipitate that? How would he feel? And then we blew that, held a press conference and targeted him and said, in fact, your Vanguard Africa has an office in Capital Center and we know it, and you're actually behind the scenes talking to these people. And I go out on national TV and say all of that and say that you are not even in this as a person with NASA. You're actually doing this for ODM because that's how your documents with Vanguard Africa reads. How does that feel? Really, we must be responsible. And that's what I'm saying, that there has to be a process by means of which he invokes to impeach the process. But he cannot wake up now and say, this is it. Why, for instance, if he felt that the president met with Al Ghurair in November 2016, why didn't he say, even in the Accord papers, that this particular company should not ever be awarded the contract because of those reasons? He didn't. So he comes out now. And like my good friend said here, Mr. Kagusha, the problem is now we are staring at a precipice. We're just about to go to the election period. And if you create this animosity and the feeling of helplessness, we do have an electoral process that is now questionable, even before we step in. It is completely wrong. You are the person with an integrity problem. You are the person with a violation of Article 10 principle of patriotism in question. If you feel, like he said, that there are extra ballot papers, go out there. Let your people cast the ballots. And then you show us that indeed there are extra ballots. But do not now create this unnecessary atmosphere that is going to, create the perception that is an unfair election. It is not an unfair election. If, for instance, you feel unprepared yourself, everybody else is prepared. I'm prepared to cast my vote, and I am waiting for that day. But if you are not prepared, don't think everybody else is unprepared.
All right, Oscar, your response to that.
Raila Odinga said that the voter register has a problem. There were issues about the auditors to audit that register. KPMG came out the other day and said, we have all these millions of dead voters. And it is now in public domain that what he said actually made sense. I can hear why Harrison is saying that we are creating an atmosphere of surrendering before the election and perceiving, putting the country in sort of a situation whereby we are going to get in an election because Raila Odinga is not prepared for the election. So
are you agreeing that's the case?
No, what he's saying is totally wrong. Because all these allegations, the perceived perceptions that they're trying to imply that NASA is creating an environment, as we move to the election, we need to be more careful. We need to ensure that all the systems are working. We need to ensure that all the people in the IEBC are credible. We cannot sit back and say that since we are now remaining with 50+ days to the election, then we cannot speak if we are seeing something wrong. So it does not matter, even if it will be at the last day, the election, and we have a problem with the credibility of the election, we must speak. So time is a factor, yes, but it does not matter. When these ills are done, we must speak out.
All right, Kagushia?
No, I would like to educate Oscar here on an issue with the voters register. It is not Raila Odinga who said that the voter register has a problem. The voter register is supposed to be audited, yes. and that is in law. Yes. It's supposed to be cleaned before the election. And this is done by an external body, which of course is again procured, in the right way. And that's how KPMG came to audit the voters register, which you remember again, the opposition queried why KPMG. And even though KPMG is an extremely reputable organization in Kenya, it was queried and someone went to court about it and it was stopped at that point. But again, the court again has again declared that KPMG was okay and the process was okay. And of course, now you can see the results. Yeah. So really, the issue of the voter register and the dead voters and all that had nothing to do with NASA or Raila Odinga. It is something that ought to have been done, indeed, because since the last voting, we had voters who may have passed on. But then coming to the same issue again, since late last year, and as much as we have been looking at these issues, we have been raising also issues as to why there has been a lot of court cases regarding the electoral process. Every time the IEBC has tried to make a step forward, there has been someone going to court to stop the process and saying this is not the right thing. And more often than not, the courts have found IEBC to be right and to be doing the correct thing. And then when you look at it, then you see it is litigation with a purpose. It is meant to derail the whole process of the elections in August 8th. And at some point, I remember early this year, there was allegations that there is one particular side of the political divide that is not interested in having an election in August. And now the direction we are taking now kind of seems now to vindicate the analysis was being done and the projection that was being done early this year. Because if we now take the direction that we are taking, I can tell you, Mike, we will be locking the boat from within so that then we don't conduct an election. Now, supposing we do not give this Dubai company this tender, and then we start the process again to award another company, do you think Raila Odinga will be comfortable with a company that is going to be awarded? I am telling you now, it will still bring issues again. There will be another allegation about something else.
Well, we can't speak for what has not happened, and we don't know that for sure. But let me come to you, Oscar, before I come to you, Harrison. And Oscar, looking at the timing that we have right now, is there a time that you feel that IEBC will ever be ready for us to have the election? Given we have 53 days to go, we have this issue that has come up. Whether Al Ghurair continues with the tender, of course, they'll be questionable. If we cancel, or rather, if the tender is cancelled and given to somebody else, there is a process. And according to even Ezra Chiloba, he said, as per where we are today, if that process begins right now, it is highly unlikely that we can have the elections on August 8th. Yet, we have the elections on August 8th. Is this a situation where we are saying, do or die, let it, the responsibility aspect of it?
Now, the responsibility is actually on both parties. But the government has a responsibility, the opposition has a responsibility, and even IEBC has that responsibility. I've just listened to what the Deputy President has said in his rallies, was it yesterday or the day before, saying that they don't care who is given the tender, even if it's Spectre International. Now, you see, those kind of wordings are actually what actually makes many people suspicious. If they don't care who is awarded this contract, why are they insisting on this particular person? We know that there's a law. And maybe just to correct you, it's not the government who have insisted on this particular person. It's IEBC who went through their own procurement process and awarded the tender to them. Yes, what I'm saying is that the sentiments of the Deputy President, whom he is saying, he said yesterday, that this contract can even be given to Spectre, they don't care who has the contract. Now, we know the law is there. The procurement laws must be followed. But what we are saying is that even if the law is there, can we have responsibility on both sides? If NASA is saying that they have a problem with this, I give it up to IEBC for calling all these stakeholders. Let us hear what they're saying. If they can exonerate themselves from all these claims, we have no problem. But we cannot keep quiet because of the law or because of the timelines. We must speak out as NASA and say that we're seeing there's a problem here, we're seeing there's a problem here, we need answers to this.
All right. Harrison, maybe looking at the spirit of the Constitution as opposed to the letter, because sometimes I think we might be torn here between semantics of is this just, following the law to the letter, but there's also the spirit of the Constitution where we are supposed to exercise integrity and responsibility. Are we being our politicians being responsible from both sides of the divide? I mean, with the Deputy President now coming out and saying we don't care who has that tender?
No, I think that should be seen in its proper context. His expression is like, look, we are not trying to manipulate the IEBC process. We're not trying to manipulate any ballot tendering process. We're not in it. If it happens to fall to Raila's Spectre company and he's the one to conduct it, we are confident because of the numbers that we perceive that we have in terms of how far we have penetrated the areas, that we will win regardless of who the referee is. On the other hand, the so-called NASA, and I should disabuse anyone out there, this is not about NASA, it's about ODM. ODM, they have their own presidential candidate. We do not have a NASA presidential candidate. Let's be clear about that.
And that's your opinion?
No. We, in law, I'm just being plain honest. The person whose name appears on the ballot paper for the so-called opposition is Raila Odinga, not on a NASA ticket, but on an ODM ticket. Let's be clear about that. That is what the IEBC knows. So what they are planning to form is an ODM government. Let's be plain and clear about it. And what am I saying? They do not have, even as we speak today, what they would like to sell to the Kenyan people by way of a manifesto. They would like us to believe NASA is going out there. So basically, what am I saying? NASA, or the so-called that wing of the opposition, is deflecting its inefficiencies. They have been going around the country just telling people, dethrone the Jubilee government from governance. That's it. But if you ask them, in politics, you must have a manifesto. All that time they've been going around the nation, they do not have a manifesto. They have told us they will launch their manifesto next week. Let's be clear about that. Unless I got it wrong, what I'm hearing is that, you know, we've been hobbling all over in the past. Now we want to have a clearer vision. And maybe that's why Nyenze was saying that, look, man, I just can't see your vision. Let me just go on the other side to support it. But what am I saying? There seems to be a deflection of these deficiencies. And they are now seeing a sort of renaissance rise up of the Jubilee influence in Busia, in West Pokot, and all those so-called strongholds of the opposition. They are in a panic. And so they would like now to deflect the attention now to something much more sensational. Oh, you know, we will not have a credible election. So you find that the responsibility that they should be possessed of in terms of Chapter 6 in order to have the integrity of the electoral process is lacking.
Okay. Oscar, maybe coming back to you, as one who is a supporter of NASA, what is the way forward? We've already put it out there, and it is fact. August 8th is cast in stone. That's not going to change. If we look at these aspersions that are being cast right now, it means either a tendering process has to begin. If that begins, then that puts us in a very, very straitjacket that August 8th may not happen. And that literally throws us as a country into a constitutional crisis. Mm-hmm. What's the way forward from you're seated?
Just before I answer that, I don't know why Bwana Kinyanjui is so much interested in whether it is an ODM or a NASA candidate. We all know that Jubilee fell, they merged and became one party. NASA is a coalition. And I still don't understand why he has a problem with it being ODM and not NASA, or being NASA, not ODM, because we know that the ideology around NASA, there are minds that have come together and have agreed on a way. Even if the way is only one to remove Jubilee, if that's the only agreement they have, then that's what they're standing for. So I will want to understand later why he has a problem with either it being an ODM or a NASA issue. But coming back
Manifesto.
But coming back to what you've asked me, the way forward. This country, we cannot always be running it in time as if it's a crisis. IEBC knew about the 8th of 8th election far much way ahead, and they have been doing the planning. And what we are simply asking as NASA, the planning should have been done right. We should have results right. Now, in terms of the timeline, you remember in the 2013 election, we were told that we vote and we go back home and we look at a screen at Bomas of Kenya. That screen hung the last minute. And the results were not being transmitted for 2 or 3 days. That repeat is what we are now saying, that these 54 or 53 days are more, that they're actually enough days to ensure that the processes are done well, the ICT works well, the transmission is done well, the personnel is also well. We are not going to expect or to wait to the last minute when everybody is watching Bomas of Kenya and things go back. So we are actually on time. In terms of the procurement, I'm sure that even the both sides of the political divide know, they both have interests. And those interests can actually be merged together and to ensure that we have a free, fair, and credible election. I'm waiting to see what IEBC is going to say today, because they have called for this stakeholders meeting. I'm waiting to see for them to deny all that NASA has been saying. Is it a lie, or do they have a proper response for it? But
right.
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay, we'll have to wait and hear, John.
Yeah, you know, the issue of preparedness, I don't think it arises anywhere. Oscar, you know, the issue of tendering of the ballots has not been done now. It had been done by the old commission, and they were saying, before we go, we want to ensure that we are prepared for the election. And this had been done in very, very good time. And remember, that commission was removed unconstitutionally from office because of political pressure from one side of the political divide. And they had a right, by the way, in law, to refuse to get out of office. But because of the political pressure which was there, and for the good of the country, it was agreed then that we have a political settlement, and they left office. But the work that had been done, and remember, the Secretariat has been carrying out these duties, whether the commissioners are in or not, they have been doing the work. The preparation had been done. But now what happened, just to remind you, is that, again, people from one political divide went to court and said, these companies that have been procured to offer us these services, they were procured by the old commission that has left. Now we have a new commission. We now then want the court to declare that that process is null and void, and then have the process redone again. That's the only reason why that was done. Otherwise, this company, Mike, had already been procured legally and in the due process, and not even in the times that we are talking about these State House meetings. You know, that had already been done. So the preparation has been there. The process has been okay with IEBC. Now looking at the IEBC issues, the problem has actually been the court injunctions that have been taking place from time to time. So we are likely then, if we derail this process any further, we are likely then to start encountering dangers and problems of having a constitutional crisis. And of course, if then we have that, of course, it is not going to be a very good for us as a country. But again, then we would be now talking about power sharing and all that. But we want to get to that level as a country. And what I appreciate about what IEBC is doing, again, from a governance perspective, is the way they have tried to involve the public in this whole process. Remember, we are doing this conference that has been there this week, which has been a very big milestone. This is the second time we are having it. Now it's a requirement by the Constitution that we involve, I mean, there's public participation. And you can see very clearly that IEBC is willing to be audited, is willing to put everything on the table for all the stakeholders to come and, you know, see what they are doing. And that's why that stakeholders meeting was there, and it was broadcasted quite well by all the media houses. Now, this is a show of interest by IEBC to open up to the public. Now, look at how fast they are responding to any allegations that seem to be poking holes on their credibility. I think it's very good, it's very positive, because they are responsive, they are not ignoring. When Raila talks, they listen, and they come on board and they say, okay, can we even then go to the company where these ballot papers are going to be printed? Today they have already called for a meeting of the, stakeholders, mainly for the presidential candidates, again to discuss the issue. Probably they might just agree, okay then, let's redo this tendering process
Allow
again.
me to pose you as we release the KTN Home Channel, who are now beginning Life and Style. And for those of us on KTN News, we continue with the state of the nation, and what we are discussing and looking at is where we are as a country with the IEBC facing yet another controversial issue that they are going to address at 10 a.m. So for those of us on KTN Home, this is where we say goodbye. Harrison Kinyanjui, here we are from a legal perspective. What is the way forward? What do we make out of all this? What is the next step that we need to do? Of course, we'll still need to wait for the 10 a.m. address by IEBC once they meet the stakeholders. But as a country, what is it that we are staring at, and what do we need to do from here?
Now, without wishing to preempt what the IEBC chair is going to say, I think his position has been expressed before, and I think Ezra Chiloba's expression was that look, you people are talking about a meeting. I have no idea what it is that you're telling me about. Really, I am not partisan. I'm very objective. The chair is likely to say, we will go ahead with Al Ghurair. This is what we have because of time constraints. We really have no pleasure of time or the luxury of playing around with this tender that we have. Otherwise, we are staring at a failure of August 8th. Time is too short for us then to engage other players who may wish to have a stake at the ballot printing process. And so he's likely to say, we will go ahead with this ballot printing company. And that is in the public interest. And I believe the NASA side of the political divide ought to, I won't say this in a negative way, live with it. In the sense that, like Mr. Kagusha here has said, if you really thought of stealing the election through extra ballot printing, really you don't have to have extra ballots printed. You really don't have to go that way. You will have 99% of the voter turnout. So if someone was intent on stealing the ballot, the vote at that point, then they would go that avenue. So the apprehensions, with tremendous respect, that the NASA wing have of the so-called these companies, extra ballot printing and all of that, is, in my view, are totally and absolutely misplaced. The way forward is for us to cool down the temperatures in the political arena. Their wing ought to get their house in order, because in my view, they don't have their wing in order, and therefore they're deflecting all their attention from that disorder. And now when they reflect and even pause and sit back and they see how the Jubilee wing is conducting, say, oh my gosh, look at that, man. We cannot match that up. So then they think that, oh, this is how we will deflect the attention. And so I believe that the best way forward is for them to use the little time they have to try to sell themselves to the Kenyan people. The Jubilee go on and sell themselves to the Kenyan people. And the voter is told, we have a referee known as the IEBC. The IEBC is prepared. And the IEBC will conduct the elections on 8th. Can we get that assurance from them? Can we get that assurance from them?
The question, I guess, would be free and fair.
No, let me finish. That free and fair, let me just say again, we will be here mudding the water, saying that because they perceive there is an element of bias, then therefore it will not be free, it will not be fair. And like you ask, if there is a new or a fresh tendering system, will their leader accept it? Mr. Kagusha, will the process not again pop up another legal challenge? And, oh, you know, we don't like the name of blah, 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 blah. Who did it? Because he shares a name with one of the cousins of the president. Oh, you know, there could be some linkage, and we are 2 days to the election. What am I saying? They want to create a crisis that the IEBC should completely get away from that trap. And we go ahead to the August 8th. Let them be ready. Let everybody get ready for August 8th.
Oscar, as we close and as we wind up, what is the one thing that IEBC needs to do right now for you to be pacified and feel that, okay, now we are ready, they're ready, let's go to the election?
We have said it loud and clear as NASA, that the ballot printing process, we have issues with it. And we have issues with the CEO as well, and the operations director. We've expressed all that. Now we are waiting for the response from IEBC to listen to them and actually exonerate themselves from all these claims that we've made. About NASA being prepared for election, and I want to say it here, that previously election preparedness, whichever wing's popularity, cannot be determined at this level actually by the attender of ballot printing. I want to tell the nation that NASA is prepared for the election fully, and no one should be dissuaded by him in his suggestion that we are actually bringing a crisis because we're not prepared. We are fully prepared for the election, and I'm sure he has seen
you have no manifesto?
He has seen actually what Sinovet has said, that actually we are now leading. But manifesto or no manifesto, the country is tired of this Jubilee government.
No, not the country.
We are very specific that with or with no manifesto, NASA is going to actually launch its manifesto next week. You should not push us to launch that manifesto. But we are actually assuring Jubilee government that in this election, they must go home.
All right. Kagushia, your closing comments?
Yeah,
and,
when I read the newspaper this morning, and I was looking at what the allegations are, I was not really able to pick out the actual issues or the facts in this case. Because what I have seen personally is a conspiracy, is a narrative that has been created. And of course, that is going to form the basis of campaigns going forward. So, and I am asking myself, is it fair to the country that we create conspiracies and narratives around very sensitive issues like the election? I think if there are real facts about a serious conflict of interest, then the facts need to be placed on the table. But also the facts must also be credible facts, not a fact that the Chamber of Commerce had visited at some point and then the president happened to have greeted these gentlemen. I don't think that would be any basis anywhere in the world to cancel that tender or even to allege conflict of interest. The issue of linkage between the Kenyatta family and this company in Dubai, again, the alleged link, again, has not come clear. It has not been put on the table other than just saying it. And anyone can say anything. But again, I say these are very, very sensitive issues. Having said that, it is important still to have all the political players, all the stakeholders, have a sitting with IEBC and thrash out these issues. And it's also important to, of course, stop the constant attacks on IEBC on a daily basis. Because if you keep attacking the referee every day, what eventually you are doing is that you're washing down the credibility, and come August 8th, if you win, the other party can actually say, no, but you already said these people are not good. If you lose, again, you will convince the Mwananchi that, again, we are losing because the referee was not fair. So I think the best thing is this referee that we have today was a consensus, as a product of consensus. It was the two political parties or political wings that came together and agreed that we are comfortable and we are okay with this commission. Remember, Chebukati is actually a former ODM member. He's actually a person who had run on ODM party at some point. And I was actually concerned that this other party was not actually raising issues, that the person now who is leading the commission is a person who had run actually in one of the electoral, one of the general elections with this particular party. Yes. So it is important.
Which again would be look like conflict of interest.
That again would look like a conflict of interest. But the fact that maybe the Jubilee side has decided to say, okay, you had done that before, but now you have a job. You get, before, of course, the issues of ethnicity have come up, that only these people from these areas are leading these crucial, critical institutions. Again, now, if you look at it again, these gentlemen also seem to be actually come from the NASA strongholds. So that should have given these political players comfort that and consolation that these things are going to be done in the right way. And the fact that also they seem to be putting everything on the table. They are calling conferences, they are calling, it seems that these guys are interested to have things on the table. And I'm again saying that based on what we can see every day, and really this is based on facts. These are the allegations which are coming on at this late hour. It's important to put only facts and not allegations.
Not allegations.
Yeah, because we do not want to dampen the spirit. And remember, by the way, I don't know why NASA again is not learning from the voter registration time. Remember, just when we were the nick of registering voters, again, your presidential candidate again came on board saying, we know this election has already been stolen. What was the result? People in the NASA areas, strongholds, again withheld from going to register as voters. Because again, why do you have to register for a process which is already flawed? And if Baba says it, then he must have some facts on it. So really, in fact, I remember an elite, a person in my office actually, who said, this thing I'm not even going to vote. Yeah, because Baba has said that this thing is flawed. You see, so it is important that you learn from those mistakes, because if you start raising that now, you are again going to see the spirit of Kenyans being dampened, and people may not come out to vote in large numbers, especially from the NASA.
Harrison, your closing comments?
My closing comment is that I think all this appears to me like part of the script for this so-called NASA wing to get into the election, and to, as it were, roil and ignite passions against the IEBC to an extent, if they will, at best, get Mkatenusu negotiating point, then it could do that. The way it appears now, and like Mr. Kagusha has said here, any other point that you have in this electoral cycle, electoral process, voter registration, he popped up there, Baba. Popped up with, votes have been stolen. You come now to the Electoral Commission, get out, we don't need you, you're unfair. Then you get Chiloba. Now Chiloba is meeting the president. You have this ballot printing company. Now you hear they want to print extra ballots. So when you look at that in its perspective, globally speaking, then it appears that this is the script. This is part of what they believe they should be doing. And someone can say, well, the opposition should be doing this sort of a thing. But I think you should give faith to the IEBC to conduct its electoral mandate without this undue interference and constant haranguing and attacks. And my simple advice to Baba is this: Baba, please get your house in order, sell your ideas to the Kenyan people. If they like you, and if they find that they can give you a chance, even though you proved that you couldn't during the Mkatenusu, then they will do it.
All right.
If they want to give you Jubilee, they will do it. But leave it, please, Baba. Leave it to the electorate.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll have to wind it up right there. Thank you for joining us this morning on the State of the Nation. And of course, right here on KTN News, we're going to be looking forward to the 10 a.m. meeting between IEBC and the presidential candidates, or their representatives. Would like to hear what they have to say, because here we are as a country staring at a dilemma which leaves us with more questions than answers. And